In 2006, Margot J. from Indiana University was victimized by rape and reported it to the campus. The panel took her seriously, but she couldn't believe how they punished her offender. Kristen Lombardi from the Center of Public Integrity actually wrote, "It was the penalty that left Margot sputtering with rage. The man that raped her was found responsible for what he had done, but his punishment was only 60 days suspension in the summer term at IU." College judicial boards and criminal courts handle situations very differently, especially all of the college rape cases we hear of all the time. College judicial boards let many things roll over their shoulder and tuck it under the rug. I believe that college rape cases should go through the judicial boards and straight to the criminal courts, and they should be handled more diligently. If the situation with Margot doesn't already have you believing that the judicial board should have no say, let me inform you on a few more things that will definitely have your mind thinking the same way mine does. Margot is just one case that shows how people have to cope with the long-term effects of being sexually assaulted and how to deal with their offenders. First, too many rape cases are happening on college campuses, and the offenders are getting away with little to no retributions. The definition of retribution in the book, Crime and Justice in America, is the inflicting punishment proportional to the harm caused. Tyler Kincaid from the Huffington Post stated, "If a college student is disciplined by a school for sexual assault, the rapist can skip the punishment by transferring to a new university without anyone ever knowing, and most of the time their case isn't even on their transcript after they transfer." Nick Anderson from the Washington Post stated, "Students found responsible for sexual assault are as likely to be ordered to have counseling or even given a reprimand as they are to be kicked out. They are much more likely to be suspended than they are and then allowed to finish their semester out." Lastly, the victim of the sexual assault has to live with the constant fear of the not knowing and so many what ifs. They will have to worry about if their offender, where their offender is at all times, and if the offender will come back to retaliate against them when they're ratted out. Many victims have admitted to hiding that they were sexually assaulted because they are afraid of what could happen to them by their offender, or if they will come back to retaliate or to harm them worse than they have already harmed them before. All the problems with these cases lead back to how terrible the college judicial boards really are. When handling rape cases on campus, college judicial boards usually don't take things as seriously as they should. These offenders are getting the punishment of expulsion at the worst. Tyler Kincaid from another Huffington Post received data from the U.S. Department of Justice showing that rapists in these college campuses situations don't get any kind of harsh suspension. 13 to 30% are expelled, 29 to 68% are just suspended, 14 to 33% are just reprimanded, 4 to 9% have to serve some kind of community service, 12 to 29% just go through counseling, and 26 to 63% just fall in the other category. Finally, the statistics that I have just shown you prove why these rapists keep doing this. They see that nothing is happening to them after they are harming their victims, and they think that they have power over everyone. Victims are so scared of the what ifs because they know if nothing has happened to their offender that the person could come back from anywhere to harm them. Suzanne Cassidy from Lancaster Online actually said that if you attend Franklin or Marshall College and you're a victim of sexual assault, you have to face your offender when you're stating the facts about what had happened. You are like in this panel and you have to show like facts of what has happened, and your offender is sitting right next to you when you're giving these facts, which is really intimidating. No person should ever have to deal with any of this, and this is why there needs to be no judicial board involved in the punishment for the person committing this horrible crime. First, to help solve this issue of judicial cases being in charge of making the decisions for the offenders, the Time editorial board from LA Times wrote that if schools are going to remain in the business of handling allegations of sexual assault, they must be sure victims are treated with respect and that the complaints are taken seriously and pursued vigorously. Lastly, there could be a couple of things we could do to keep the victim from having to worry every day about their offender coming back or having to hide from their offender. If the offender was guilty and served time for what he or she has done, the victim should get notice of what jail or prison that their offender has been put in and when they're due to get out. That would let the victim know the offender's whereabouts and they wouldn't have to worry every day about where their offender is at. Having more security on and around campus is always a big issue too. That's another option. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Victims of sexual assault deserve closure in order to move on with their lives. By looking at the problems, causes, and solutions, the best thing for the victims of sexual assault on college campuses is for their offenders to have to go through the criminal courts. The offenders will get the punishment they deserve from the criminal courts, and they get the punishment for ruining a huge part of their victims' lives. If the victim of a case similar to these we have discussed was close to your heart, would you really want them to have to deal with the college judicial boards? No, you would want the offender to have to go through the criminal courts so they get the punishment just as they should.